Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host, and we have a great guest tonight, Melissa Tittl. She has been, well, what a media background she has. She's been involved in all kinds of things, and I'm really glad to have her on this evening. I saw her on with my friend Ben Hansen on a show or two, and I thought she would make a great guest. And so Ben connected me, and thank you, Ben, for that. A couple of announcements. Few behind the scene things. First of all, we may be able to take phone calls. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do this tonight, but with the new producer in Utah for KGRA radio, we have a phone system there, which I just discovered today. So I'm pretty excited about that. Our blog this week is part 2, the Cosford UFO incident. Now that took place back in March of 1993. And England, and it's a real fascinating case. Many police officers involved. This is a UFO incident that was repeated. So it's a really interesting blog by Charles Lear. Those get made into audio blogs, and they're up in our audio MP3s that go out on our podcast and also as a YouTube as well. Speaking of YouTube, October 15th on this channel on YouTube, you will hear a new show that Bill kind of put together at KGRA Radio. He saw some other people on different shows and said, hey, why don't we do this show together once a week? So October 15th exclusively on this YouTube channel, KGRA's UAP Crossfire, Chris DiPerno, Commander Cobra. Let's see who else we have. Oh, yes. Don Ecker, the one and only Don Ecker. He's been around the UFO topic since the 80s, and he's a real character. And so also myself. And we did a run yesterday, pre-record yesterday, just to see how things would go, and it was a blast. So I think you'll enjoy that. That's going to be on this YouTube channel on the 15th of October. So another thing, I'll be up at Shag Harbor. I'm going to be doing a talk up at Shag Harbor in Nova Scotia, and that's this coming Sunday. And if you just happen, we do have some listeners up there. So if you happen to be there, please say hi. That'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to meet my friend Dean Eliotto. He's going to be up there as well. Nick Pope and a few others. Chris Stiles, who I really appreciate and respect, a great UFO researcher. He's kind of helped put this thing together. And it's the anniversary of the Shag Harbor event. And so that should be interesting. Well, without further ado, I'd like to bring in my guest, Melissa. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. Now, Melissa, you've been doing all kinds of things in the film industry, going back a while. You have your own company basically now, right?
Yeah, I do. I know. It's I kind of forget. It's kind of good to do these podcasts because people bring up shows I totally forgot about. So I've done a lot of mainstream shows, and at one point I was head of content for Gaia. I produced and wrote the first 5 seasons of Ancient Aliens, Hangar One, some other stuff, and then now I have my own company, so I can do more of this content the way I want to.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing, to have control. That's the because once when you work with a lot of people, things can go not the way you may want. You think that should be the best way to do it, but when it's your own baby, you get all the responsibilities, but you get the perks to it as well.
That is so true. That is so true. And that's one thing that Ben and I from UFO Witness, we always talk about, is that, in some of these shows, even the ones we're on, you don't necessarily have as much control as it looks like you do. And especially, I think, in this field, there's people that really know a lot about the field, and then there's people that are really good at producing. Those are 2 separate kinds of people. Mm-hmm. So, I feel like with my company, I really want to merge both of those concepts together so that we can get content out there that reaches people and really does the job of good journalism.
That's right. I mean, that's great. That's really great. And you have Code 12. You want to talk a little bit about that? What is that about?
Sure.
I tried to watch it. You can't. It's not streaming yet. Where you
not
can.
Yet.
Yeah.
A couple months, probably Amazon.
Nice.
I will definitely promote it. So I'm sorry, everybody listening, but I hope tune in for a couple months. You can also check my website, www.hathorstudios.com, or Code 12 the movie, and there's definitely an air date that will go up there as soon as we have one. But
Yeah.
Code 12, there's not really aliens involved per se. It is really I know, disappointing. But it is a theory of mine and something I've been working on for quite some time. I'd say about 10 years plus. And it's really about the simulation theory. And aliens do play a part in that, because if we are simulated, then the idea of alien beings would be simulated within our universe and existence. So it's kind of a bigger deep dive on a code I discovered in not only ancient texts, but also everything that surrounds us.
There's a lot of, I've heard that theory over the simulation theory many times over the years. And, sometimes, everything does seem like so mysterious, almost like that could be an answer to how all these things are happening that we can't explain. So many unusual things. Plus, I really feel like we know very little. We think we know a lot, but I feel as though we know very little of actually what's going on.
I would agree with you. And I think the more we learn about the universe, the more we can figure out, I mean, we're going to talk about aliens on this podcast, but the more we can figure out what is visiting us and these experiences people are having, we have just such a limited knowledge of how things really work in the universe. And quantum physicists will tell you that, every day there's a new article or a new discovery that scientists have discovered that doesn't really make mainstream. And that's just the science field of how these different things that they're figuring out how the universe works. So we're barely scratching the surface. The more we understand that, I think we're going to be able to figure out what's been happening to millions and millions of people all over the world.
Right. Yeah. I know that the quantum physics and the string theory and all that is just so mind boggling, and entanglement and all that, how entanglement works is just, beyond what you can imagine. And I wonder if Einstein was alive today, what he would think about, the discoveries when it comes to, he always thought, I forget what he called it, spooky, something at a distance. He had
spooky at a distance. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever the term was, but I bet he would be fascinated by the progress that has been made, since, and that's a very short time, actually, when you think of it on the scale of things. Mm-hmm. Now, what initially got you interested in kind of the esoteric, I guess I'd put it that way, to begin with?
I think everything is kind of woven together. I think once you start deep diving in one area, you realize that there's all these other areas and they kind of coincide at the same time, right? So if you're focused on aliens, if you really, really want to get to the bottom of it, all of a sudden you start opening other doors, right? Then you're watching Ancient Aliens, and then you're diving into, the Anunnaki, and then all of a sudden you find symbols from, England, and then you're like, oh my God, and then it unravels in some weird way. So you could just keep going into a rabbit hole. But I think the esoteric is passed down knowledge from ancient times. I think that there was definitely a point in our human history that we understood more of how the universe worked, and something happened, right? There's many theories about this. There's some kind of cataclysm, flood, meteorite hits the planet, but something happened. We kind of went back in time as far as our knowledge that we understood how things worked. And there's lots of people who talk about this, so it's not my theory.
Yeah.
But I think that there was a lost knowledge, and it doesn't have to be Atlantis per se, but it's this idea of how the universe works. And I think that's what the esoteric represents, kind of a passed down lineage of people who held that knowledge, and then it got translated into other books and symbols, so that we could figure it out. I mean, there's people that know what that means, but that's not like a mass populace understanding.
A lot of times when we always compare to ourselves, like we always throughout time, we always thought we were on the pinnacle of all knowledge. And, but when you dig back into ancient times, the people were brilliant then, and learned, and there were so many things that, like you say, when they find this, I'm trying to remember what it's called, that instrument that they found that was, I believe, 10,000 years old or something like that. Mechanical instrument that they found embedded.
Is that the it's oh my God, what is it called now? They found it, and nobody can actually report on it because one guy's locked up all the information. It's the turning, like the sundial thing, right?
Yeah, what it might
Yeah,
calculate, what it might actually calculate is whatever
right.
it was brilliant. And I mean, there's always been, I think once our brains developed, I think there's been brilliant people, you know, doing amazing things over the years. And I mean, brain surgery in the Roman times, I mean, things like that, and
Yikes.
yeah, I know. But
You
anyway, I
never know.
think
They
it's
might have
all
used might some kind of Neuralink situation going on in the Roman times.
true. Yeah. Yeah. Now, have you yourself ever had any type of UFO sighting?
No, isn't that weird? It's so
No,
odd
it's
to me.
not. No, no, it's not at
Never,
all. As a
really?
matter of fact,
Okay.
there's a lot of people that have an interest in this topic. Stanton Friedman never had a UFO sighting, and
Really? I thought he
a
did.
renowned. Nope, never had one. And Stephen
Hmm.
Bassett, there's a bunch of them, bunch of
Hmm.
people who did, and then there's a few out there that claim they've had one after they said they didn't have one.
Oh,
I mean,
great.
so I
Tonight's
mean,
my night.
trying to puff up their background somehow. I don't know if that's what that's about, but
Yeah.
still, it's not necessary at all to have a curiosity of it. I think I actually had a sighting in 2007, but before then, I had like a passing curiosity in the whole topic. I mean, I used to always uh, believe that it would be kind of impossible for us to be alone, and
Hmm.
I'm still feeling that way. But the one thing I got to tell you, after I've done this show since it's coming up on 12 years now, and I
Wow.
feel like I know less, about the topic than when I started. Basically, I don't know anymore is what I should say. Maybe not less, but
Yeah, I would agree with you
it's
100%.
yeah. I mean, it's such a mystery, and I just was talking about in the monologue before I started about doing this UAP crossfire thing with these three other guys. It was a lot of fun, and basically, one of the questions came up was, uh, does the government actually know? I do believe that there's some part of our government that knows a lot, but I don't know if they know the whole picture. That's how I feel about it. I may be wrong. Maybe they
Hmm.
do know more, or maybe they know less than that. But anyway,
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that we can't just paint one group of people or profession by knowing everything because if there really was this secret, not everybody would know it in an organization. And I think that's true.
yeah, yep. And it's a way
Mhm.
also the way things are. There's the need to know thing, and how they
Mhm.
can compartmentalize things, and how they also can put things off into like a private entity with no government oversight. So I think that's kind of what's happened along the way. And then it's, generationally passed down to whoever. There was I don't know if you ever heard about that. I forget the guy's name, Chase, I want to say, Chase Brandon, who supposedly had found a box name with Roswell on it when he was working for the government somehow. I don't know if you ever heard that story,
No,
but
I've never heard this story. How could I have
yeah,
never heard this story? But he found a box. Oh, this is such a movie. I love it. It just says Roswell Confidential, like in red pen.
yeah, jiggle the box, yeah,
Some dead
yeah,
alien bodies in there.
yeah, yeah,
Love
right.
it.
So, I mean, there's still like, Roswell, there's still such controversy about Roswell. And
Mhm.
I don't know what to think about Roswell. There are some that have looked at it a long time. And is that something you've ever looked into at all? And
I
what are
mean, I
some of the
definitely
cases
looked
you?
into. I didn't deep dive into it like some people have made it their life's passion to really figure out
Yeah,
what happened at Roswell. Um, and we have to thank those people because they've done all the legwork, I think, to kind of connect the dots or what how many dots we know now. But I think like one of the things that I always get this question, and sometimes this question comes to me to people who like don't believe in aliens, and they're like, "Well, how do you know if somebody's telling the truth or not?" And and I said it, and I always tell them in every story, no matter how crazy it is or how much I don't want to trust this person because of some demeanor they have that I'm picking up as a journalist. there's always a grain of truth in the story. What that grain of truth is your job as a journalist to figure out on a neutral level. And sometimes figuring out what that truth is isn't necessarily figuring out if the alien part of the story is real. What part of the story of what they're telling has relevancy. And once you can go from there, then you can figure out the truth of the story. And I think something definitely happened at Roswell. And I think that 100% people that aren't into aliens would tell you something happened at Roswell. What that is up for debate. I personally don't think it was a weather balloon, but I do think something happened. And whether that was a top secret project or it was aliens, something 100% happened, and it is still being kept under wraps.
Yeah, I mentioned Stanton Friedman just a minute ago, and he used to say that he was on this show at least a dozen times. He was such a great guy. He used to say that the government lied 5 times about Roswell, and that he could prove that they lied 5 times about Roswell. But whether it had to do with some secret military situation or whatever, that's up for debate. One of the shows that I've had recently that I was really happy to do was with someone that was very, very stressed when I interviewed him, and I wasn't prepared for it at all because I had many, many conversations with him. His name is Jonathan Wygant, who was on this show a few weeks ago, and it was about a Peruvian situation. It was only the second time a crash that he happened upon when he was in the Marines. It's only the second time he's ever talked about it. And, when he got up in front of when I turned the lights on, he said, "Move the lights away." Like he felt like he was being interrogated. So it's a little bit of a dark room that he's in. But anyway, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that he was telling the truth through that whole thing. And it's a spectacular story.
Is it what's happening in Peru right now with the face peelers?
It's totally unrelated. It happened in 1997.
Wow.
But it is something that I've tried to hook him up to, like, you should, try this whistleblower thing. Really, he says he does not trust the government. He does not want to talk to anyone about it. He had journalists that they were getting a hold of me that wanted to talk to him, write a story. Nope, I don't trust journalists. They twist stories. It was like, and they said, "Well, you're kind of a journalist interviewing." Yeah. Well, it was. I thought, he kind of clammed up during the interview. It was really tough. I wasn't prepared for it, but it was still. What I'm getting at is, you mentioned about the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a single doubt that he was telling the truth the whole time, and it pained him, and you could see it.
Yeah.
He did not want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, what are some of the cases that you've actually looked into when it comes to the UFO world?
Let's see. I haven't spent a lot of times with the famous ones. I mean, a lot of the stuff
that's
that we
good.
Yeah, I know. I was like, you know what?
I like the other ones.
They're good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the UFO Witness ones were definitely a combination of Ben and I of our interests on certain subjects, and it's crazy. I think I always wanted to cover Skinwalker Ranch, but after Ben and I spent all this time at this ranch that was supposed to be similar activity to Skinwalker in Arkansas.
I heard about that.
Yeah, he probably talked about it.
I didn't see the episode though.
Oh yeah, it was his contact. He had been working it for a really, really long time, and they had never let anybody on their property, but they were having all of this kind of, I'll just say, Skinwalker Ranch type activity. Everything. Cryptids, ghosts, demons, aliens, like everything just kind of coming through. And after spending all that time out there, I was like, maybe I switch my focus to other cases. Because it's totally on the body. And then I don't know if you've ever read Hitchhikers in the Pentagon. But like that's all about soldiers.
Oh yes, I think I had that person on the show. Who wrote that?
Well, there's two two soldiers, special forces guys, and then George Knapp and the other guy that I cannot remember his name. But I don't think the special forces guys have come out unless they've come out recently. They're kind of nicknamed in the book to keep their identity. But one of the things that they talk about, and I'll get to the point of why I'm saying what I'm saying, is that they reported bringing back entities that then haunted their family and attached themselves to their lives and the people that they loved. And it took a really long time for them to get rid of them. So some of the things that I feel in some of these places, that effect does happen. And so you just have to be really careful. I think for me, the investigation part of the kind of cases where humans, not just places that are just completely have some kind of crazy vortex energy like Skinwalker Ranch, but places where multiple people have experienced, seen a UFO, being abducted, having conversations, whether subconsciously or consciously, with other entities. Those are the places that I like going to, because I really want to figure out, is it the location? Is it the people? Some kind of genetic code? Or is it in the right place, the right time, somehow passing through? Because I think that those create patterns in the data that's been collected for the last 50, 60 years of why they're coming here and how they're coming here. And so those are the kind of things that I'm more interested in, even if it's a smaller story, as long as there's multiple stories, multiple people having somewhat of the same experience, that to me creates more of a data pattern than just a one-off.
Well, I'll tell you that whole hitchhiker thing is kind of scary to me. And I've heard a lot of people talk about it.
I'm like, I don't want to bring it. People, living people in flesh and blood are enough work. Like bringing something home in another dimension is just like another, cherry on top of all that.
Yeah. One you don't want to deal with. Yeah. I know that when I spoke to, the Brandon Fugel and the others at, the Skinwalker Ranch, they say that happens there as well, that some people have left and brought things with them. And so I had thought about, I had an invitation to go there but I had to shore it up with the agency and all that does all the press work for them. And it had to go around their filming and all that type of stuff. But I still think I'd probably go. My producer and I would probably still go if we had the chance. I think I'd chance it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people go there and, you don't hear about it too much, but it does. I mean, I think there is something to that. I mean, enough people talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree. Yeah. No, it's definitely there. I think there, but it's not just that location, Skinwalker Ranch. Skinwalker Ranch obviously has been written about, and there's a lot of case studies done about it, but there's lots of other people that have similar, even if places that are harmless, seemingly harmless, like Sedona, right? There's tons of alien activity out there. There's tons of weird spirit stuff and vortex stuff and missing time, but people report stuff happening to them afterwards, whether it's good or bad. So I think it's in this field. That's one thing I've become really sensitive to, that in the world of investigation, who's deciding what thoughts are coming into my head, and being really clear and staying really neutral, not trying to believe anything too much. And then what am I bringing home? Because this is a totally different kind of work. Bringing your work home with you is another level.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Now, speculative. I'm asking you to speculate here, but and I've asked this of a number of people over the years. Why would you think there are places like Skinwalker Ranch or hotspots in general? Maybe perhaps there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings in Pennsylvania in the area. Maybe there's a lot of UFOs in this area, and they repeated the same UFO comes over and over again. I mean, it's so bizarre. And I'm just wondering your speculation of why do you think there's these spots and areas that people can go to and actually see something happen?
Well, I think spots like this have existed since the beginning of humanity. And we know that because we keep finding stone circles and markings that are older and older and older. And those spots are always in places where there's some kind of energy there, no, I'm not saying Stonehenge is filled with Bigfoots and cryptids and all sorts of stuff, but there is some energy there. So humans have been marking spots with energy, whether it's negative or positive. And so that leads me to believe, I mean, of course, this gets into some realms of pseudoscience, but that there are pseudoscience only to people who are really strict on what science is. But there are nodes on the planet. That is something we do know. And in those structures or nodes around the planet, there are different ley lines and telluric lines that cross over each other. So the theory is that when telluric lines, which are circular underneath the Earth, and the ley lines that are on top come together, then there's some kind of portal that opens. And portal, of course, is a pseudoscience form. But I believe there's a lot of validity to that because since ancient times, the same places have had alien activity, weird creatures, ghosts, ancestors, all that kind of stuff. So I really think that there's places on this earth that time and dimensions are very thin and things can cross through. And I don't even think they're intentional sometimes. I mean, if you're walking in your backyard and you didn't know that there was a thinning of dimensions and you were just walking to the end of your backyard and somehow you ended up somewhere else. I mean, sometimes that's how I feel about the whole Bigfoot sightings, that they're like crossing over into our dimension. And then crossing back over crossing back over into whatever dimension they are in, or even alien sightings, right? So I think that word has a lot of stigmatism in our practice. You know, when you say the word portal, it's a negative thing, like you believe in all of this hoopla, but there's no other way to explain it. There's some kind of energy field, some kind of thinning of the dimensions of time and space that seem to be happening, and they're happening for thousands of years. So that kind of makes the most sense in explaining what could be happening in these places. Also, I'll put one more thing into that. Sure. I'll put one more thing into the telluric line, ley line situation, is that a lot of some of these places, it's the geology makeup of the rock and the minerals that somehow hold some kind of frequency or power. Also running water underneath the earth. So if you have a mixture of certain minerals, quartz or any copper or silver, anything could be laid in the rock, and then you have running water underneath, you've already created some kind of vortexal energy, whether you believe in portals or not. The energy in that location has changed. So that's also a good indication. When I go to some of these places, I do ask, or I do read about, like, what's up with the actual land below me. Is there a unique mineral property that these things could be happening because of?
Yeah. There's a lot of speculation that goes along with the geology. Like you mentioned, Brown Mountain, a lot of things happen there. Mm-hmm. And that's the high copper content. Copper seems to be something you hear about a lot, which I think is pretty interesting. And as far as the Bigfoot being interdimensional, it's possible, because it seems like it would certainly answer a lot of the things that can't be answered, the showing up and the going away, and the never seeing any signs of skeletals, remains, or anything like that. Who knows? You watch the Patterson Gimlet, I think that's what it's called, film, and they dissected that thing all the way through and studied it and looked at the anatomy, and it does not look human. It doesn't look like someone in a costume. So I think that's, it seems like when we had that film all the way back in the 1960s, that there should be something better by now. You would think so, with all the people that claim they see Bigfoot.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
That's just
you
another.
Think so. But, and here's the thing. There's not a lot of places on the earth that are completely unpopulated. I mean, there's definitely wooded areas in the United States that are thicker and have more coverage, but they're not completely off the grid. There's a couple places, but not that many. So they couldn't necessarily, I feel like they couldn't necessarily live without being undetected completely, unless they could go in between time and space. But now we're speculating.
Well, yeah, but I disagree a little bit with you. I've done a lot of flying and over unpopulated areas in the United States, and there seems to be quite a bit. But and there was also, I don't know if you ever heard about this. It's really a spectacular thing. A guy left Massachusetts. He went up by the Allegheny, Maine, which is, you know, lots and lots of woods and lakes and things like that. He lived over 20 years without being detected, in like a hermit, you know, type of situation before he
Wow.
finally came out of the woods. So I think people can, if they want to stay, or animals or whatever, they could. Uh, but you know, there's always hunters. There's always some way someone could come across something. Here's a question. I don't believe the spelling is right, but what exactly is
Okay.
a ley line? Someone wants to know.
So ley line is a straight is a straight energetic point that kind of connects two nodes. If you can imagine, try to explain. A ley line is an energetic structure on the surface of the ground. So it has nothing to do with water. It's an energetic point that connects another point. We have them all over any structure, even in your land. If you have 2 acres, you'll have like a bunch of ley lines that connect points. Telluric lines are the circular ones run by water underneath the ground. So these are just kind of ley lines are strong energetic currents that are picked up by certain devices that are straight, and they run right across from point A to point B, wherever that may be. That's what a ley line is, on the surface of the ground.
Okay. So when you were with Ben, now I watched some of the shows and that you and Ben did, but what do you think was, besides that Arkansas case, what were some of the ones that really stood out to you that you two investigated?
So when we were in Idaho, in oh my God, I'm gonna murder the name of that lake. it's
Better
it's
than
like
the
I can
person's
see the
name.
spelling in my head, but it's French. It's okay, well, I'll think about it, tell the story. But it's one of, I think it's the 7th deepest lake in the United States. And they have a lot of UFO activity. I literally want to call it Lake Ponderosa, but that is not what it's called. It's like I'm just thinking about it in my head. I had never been up there, and the people we interviewed it was so unique because they definitely had like a native. Here again, we have thousands of years of Native American stories of entities, or they would call them, they had them marked as bears, so that they would have the stories of bears and coming of humans, and that kind of thing. But they marked all over the lake certain spots that were really important. Now there's 2 parts of this story. I think that the Native Americans were marking really important parts of their heritage. But there was also stories of weird things that would happen in the sky. So then we started interviewing modern day stories, and there were submersible alien vehicles that would fly across the sky and then drop slowly into the water, like we have seen with some of those Navy videos. And then there was all sorts of like lights in the sky. One woman had kind of an abduction experience where she was seeing all those lights in the sky for several months. She'd be driving home and she felt like she was being followed. And then they tried to get her. She had an experience where little grays came into her room, and then they tried to take her out of bed, but somehow she escaped. It didn't happen. There's just so much stuff happening in this tiny little town in Idaho that surrounds this lake. Now, the lake itself is really unique because the Navy actually has a testing ground there for submarines because it's so deep. And there's said to be all these caverns that connect to other big lakes in Idaho and over the border. So you get into all of this underground, underground alien situation, which is kind of cool.
Wow. And do you have a couple of other ones that, and did you stay primarily in this country? You didn't go overseas, right?
No, God, we wanted to. There's so many cool things overseas. There's just,
yeah.
producers. Yeah, there's just too much to see. We also did this ranch in Colorado where there was cow mutilations. That place was super spooky. We actually had all of our equipment going off the charts completely, and then it got really rhythmic. It was every 13 seconds, like it would just pop. 1, 2, 3, 4, but stop. 13 seconds, and then it would start again. It was crazy. And the owner of the property said that, okay, so I think it's like 500 acres or something like that. And what divides the property, so he's got cows on both sides of a road, like a pretty decent sized highway, not major, but pretty decent sized highway. And he said that, like, and I could feel it because this whole area, there's just energy like surging through. And we were in there at like midnight or something. He said that there would be cows that would be flipped upside down that would be in this highway, and people would get in crashes, like their cars would be flipped. So some kind of energy seems to be running through this property kind of in a destructive way, whether it's his cattle or just people driving and their cars are flipped over while they're driving. It's pretty insane. That was an interesting case.
Wow, that's amazing. And what was this? What side of the Rockies was this in Colorado? Was it the western side or eastern side?
Eastern side, because we were right outside Colorado Springs.
Oh yes. Okay, right. Yeah. Boy, I lived there, back in the 70s in not Colorado Springs, but in, up toward Boulder in, back before I was interested in the UFOs, but I saw a pretty good meteorite out there. It was the first one I saw in my life, and it scared the heck out of me. But
in Colorado?
Yeah, in Colorado. I lived out there years ago.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. That is for sure. Yeah. I used to live there too.
Yeah. So I'm going to try the phone. We haven't had access to the phone forever because working with Bill, I have working with Chanel right now over at KGRA Radio. She'll be answering the phone, and I'd like to pop that number up here if anyone would like to call in for our guests. And if the KGRA call-in number is 855-472-5483. And I think it's been well over a year since the phone system fried in New York with Bill. So I'd love to have someone call in that number. And Chanel is standing by at KGRA Radio. So that'll be fun to actually have a call in. It's been a while, like I said. And I used to do call-in shows here, and a lot of people really participated. So now that I have this access,
I think it's fun.
I might do that. Yeah. Especially if my guest doesn't show up, I'll do a call-in show. That can happen. Yeah. So that is bizarre. I didn't realize that you did other things like the cattle mutilations. And that's such a, Chris O'Brien is a friend of mine. He has written the probably one of the best books on the subject of cattle mutilations. He's still getting calls all over the country. So it hasn't let up any. It's still happening a lot.
Yeah.
And it says, did you actually see a mutilation?
Yes, there was a cow that's why we went out there. We went out to kind of do some tests on the cow that was found. And it didn't just happen. It was it was mostly bone. There was some skin on it and stuff, but it definitely was very odd and strange. There are things that I've come across where my mind prepares me for it. Like, okay, but I'm here to look at it and come up with an assessment, right? And really take my emotions out of it. But there's a moment where you're like, what is that? Like, what? Like there's just no explanation. I did a show for A&E, and I don't know how they aired this, but it was on the first 48 hours of a murder. And it was on the side of the coroner trying to solve like what happened to this person, right? Which, I mean, so if you think about it, we're filming dead bodies in a in a corner, and there's nothing that can really prepare you for that, except for you're like, okay, this is a show. Everybody's got to do their job. Nothing's happening here, right? So that you can get it done. But, afterwards you think about that and you're like, what just happened? But when I was there and you're looking at something that is mutilated in such a way that your mind cannot wrap your head around why it happens, there's a moment where you're like, what is this? Yeah. Even in a journalistic state, you're like, what is this? what has happened here? Like, who did this and how?
I didn't realize that you reacted so quickly to like a situation that happened. Like this happened and you to jump on a plane and you go to Colorado to investigate that. That's the whole thing, any type of situation like that Ben has done over the years sounds like a dream job to me. Maybe take away from your family or whatever, but still, we actually have someone on the line now. So Paul from Milford, Connecticut, welcome to the show. Thank you for being the first caller in about, I don't know, maybe 2 years. Hi, Paul.
Being on the air, Martin.
Yeah. How are you, Paul?
Quick, I think the thing you were looking for before was the Antikythera mechanism from Greece.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. It has all the dials and the calculations.
The gears. Yeah.
Astronomy, solar. Yeah. And Melissa, were you on another broadcast with talking about Maria, the Peruvian?
Yes, I was wondering when someone was going to bring up the mummies.
I'll take my answer off the air, but I'd love to hear more about that.
Yes.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. This is such a hotly debated thing right now. So this is such a long answer to a short question. So I'm trying to make it short just to talk about Maria. So the bodies that were revealed in Mexico, they were discovered back in 2017, and I worked on that case. Maria is not one of those bodies that were brought up in that Mexican congressional hearing. Maria was a body that was found alongside those smaller bodies that he presented. So Maria, well, if she was standing up, would probably be about 5'7". She had an elongated skull. She had the 3 fingers and the 3 toes. For the most part, her body was mostly human, her torso, but her head was definitely different, and then her fingers and toes. She also had some strange ear holes that she didn't have the same mechanism of hearing that we do. Now, Maria was really interested. This could be the whole podcast. We can talk about these mummies, but Maria was really interesting to me because we spent the most time on trying to figure out if somebody had manipulated the body, and if they did, how did they do it? And number 2, if it wasn't manipulated, what was it? And there was lots of genetic testing done from different parts of the body, from different parts of the hand, from different parts of the feet, from different parts of all sorts of, but there's still skin on the body, whatever it was. There she is. And the white powder on the outside is diatomaceous earth. Now, diatomaceous earth you can find anywhere. You can buy it at Walmart. People ingest it for parasites. You can put it out in your garden. But this certain makeup of diatomaceous earth was specifically traced to the Nazca region, where they apparently found the bodies. Now, the cave is up for debate. They later took us to the cave, but I don't know if it's the right cave. A lot of these people involved are pretty dodgy. So this is why this story is such a mess. But Maria's genetic material was really interesting. And it took about a year for it to be gathered from a lab. There was a lab in Canada that we were working with. There was a lab in Mexico, and there was a lab in Russia. They were all doing separate tests. And we were asking one question, right? So you really got to be, when you're asking one question, you have to figure out where you're trying to get, because you only have a certain amount of material. And we wanted to know how much of this genetic material was of modern day human. And it came back 25% match some kind of human DNA, but it didn't match anything in the Human Genome Project. So either there's DNA that we haven't gathered, and of course the Human Genome Project I don't think includes Neanderthal or Denisovan or any of that. That's a whole different kind of DNA test. So it could have been some of that. And we also stripped it of bacteria and mold and any non-biological stuff, right? So that also takes a long time to kind of strip that away to kind of see where we're at with the DNA markers. There was some, I believe in the Mexico DNA, there was some kind of bovine DNA included. But one of the things that I can say, and I'm not here to say that they're real or not, even though I was involved, I saw them, I got to touch them. I went down there several times. I had to deal with very dodgy characters, and people that are not trustworthy. So that, that makes the story into some other situation. But I can say that if somebody made these bodies, because there's a level of CAT scans and tomography that we did, and we had specialists look at it, and they couldn't figure out where the cut marks were for them to create the fingers and the toes, or even the head for it to be elongated. If somebody created this, I want to know who they are, because they are they are not some just worker in a factory making those little dolls that they're selling right now in Peru that look like the ones that are in the Mexico congressional hearing. However they did this, it's masterful. They should, I don't know how they did it. There's lots of theories online. I've researched most of them, and I have not found a conclusion yet. I'm not saying they're real. I'm just saying if somebody made these, they're pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the Mexico congressional hearing. I am only speaking about Maria.
Yeah. I put up someone made this great little video of the alien at the Mexico congressional hearing. They made a cake out of it. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, I did. It looked delicious.
Yeah.
It looks like a good
I know
cake.
that was pretty funny. Unfortunately, there are some characters in this field that can cause a lot of problems, and I'm going to just leave it at that, because
this is
true.
no
need to speak any more about that. But we do have another caller on the line. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking, this is David from Oregon. David, welcome to the show. David, you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, David. Welcome to the show. We're here waiting for, Melissa's here waiting for your question.
And I've got an wing, so speak is right back to me. So
Oops.
Okay.
We're not getting a clear. I'm sorry. We're not getting a. Could you repeat that real quickly?
Let's see. Yeah, I still coming back to me. Oh gosh.
I'm sorry. It's not a good line. I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that.
I feel like he was on Mars or something.
I think he might have been. Or the backside of the moon, as they call it.
Maybe he can call in to KGRA and give him this question. They can tell us.
Yeah. Okay. I think looks like we have one more caller. Is that right over there?
William from Oakland.
Well, I am known for my glitches. William. We have William on the line. I don't know where he's from. I'll say hi to him. William.
Hello.
Right in. Welcome to the show, William.
Thank you. Hi, I'm calling from Oakland, California. And the lake that Melissa was talking about is called Lake Penn or I guess O'Reilly. Is that so? Maybe.
Yeah, it's French though. Hold on. Now I have to Google it. But all I want to say in my head is Lake Ponderosa, and that's not correct. It's Lake, Idaho, deepest lake. Hold on.
So William, do you have another?
Have you been there?
I do. I was wondering if UFO Witness was
Pend Oreille. It's Pend Oreille. Lake Pend Oreille.
Also, has anyone considered that the UAP quote threat may not be towards the everyday human being, but to the establishment of governmental control over the people. I mean, who would pay taxes if we knew they couldn't protect us at all, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the conversation of aliens being good or bad is pretty debated right now. I try to stay neutral in it because I don't think we're going to really find any answers if we try to paint them as such. I know a lot of the mainstream shows that I'm involved in really like to suggest that they're coming to hurt us. And I do think that we should be aware of what their capabilities are. I mean, even Michio Kaku, who I interviewed, who's a famous quantum physicist, said, you know, they're dangerous because we as humans don't understand how they work and how they're able to function in the universe. I mean, you know, I don't know if I can get on board with the idea that they're coming to save us. But they are seeming to show power, right? They're seeming the cases with the military are this: they're shutting down our nuclear power weapons. They're not blowing them up. They're not using them on us. They're just saying we can do this, right? So what are they trying to really show us? They're zipping past our cameras and they're like, "Wee, look, you can see us. This is what we're doing. This is what we're capable of." The question would be why? Is it because the military is able to continue that story, or, you know, I don't know. I just can't get on board with the fact that they're doing it for nefarious purposes completely. I think that we as humans are becoming more conscious and aware of things, and we are starting to wrap our head around beings existing in the universe, and we are being able to see things that we never could see before. And I don't think the government or the military can keep a cap on that. I think that people are too interested. And so things are getting out and they're trying to come up with stories for things. And I'm not sure if they can keep up with all the information.
That's right. I can't believe how fast this hour went by. But thank you so much, Melissa. It's been a real pleasure talking to you this evening.
Okay. Is that it?
And oh yeah, that went by fast. The hour went by fast. So I will put your information all in the show notes. Anyone can find your website and all that. You can find all that information in the show notes. And thank you so much.
Okay, great. Awesome.
Okay. Take care now.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. All right, everyone. So we'll be back with Jim Quirk next week. See you at the same time. And remember to keep your eyes to the sky.